Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of PMP's Den of Antiquities. Today we got an awesome new segment on the channel that I'm coining Thank the Maker. Not super original. There's plenty of other people out there who do that, but I like that title, so that's what we're calling this. And basically what that is I find artists and makers from all across the Star Wars galaxy and bring them on to shed light on their businesses and the stuff that they make and kind of what drives them, and also maybe to give a little inspiration and a starting off point if you want to get into that sort of stuff. So today we have on the Galactic Mercantile Guild. All right, Adam, you're up first, man. Let's hear a little bit about your shop and what you make and just go from there.
Right on. Hey, I'm Adam from Junk Traders Outpost. What do I make? Well, I don't know. I should ask Billy. Is it bespoke? Is it custom? Is it the king of something? I don't know. Just all the levels of layers of things behind my name should be like Esquire, Junior, etc. If Billy tells my story. But yeah, I mean, my general gist is I do a bit of 3D printing and modeling, right? And the two or three things I'm really known for, I think, are my custom data pad cases, right? So I buy aftermarket, just cases that fit phones, and then I do a custom job per each individual request. So I haven't done two that are the same over sort of 2 years of working. And then it sounds kind of silly to say so, but I do a lot of water bottles.
Oh, cool.
I know it's really strange because most people are like, wow, it's kind of jank, but they are quite custom, and everything I do is in universe. I really do not like to do anything that, is Star Wars branded or whatever, but it's all in universe. I mean, of course, this is an audio podcast, but for those who are kind of in the video audience, I've got like 4 of these going right now. I weather them, I rust them, I corrode them. I do pretty much any kind of custom paint job that they ask for. And what's cool about that kind of work is I run out of ideas really quickly, but the customers never do, right? Every new customer has like this new job. I was like, okay, so you want it Greedo themed, but from the old Republic. All right. Well, I'm going to have to think on that one. Right. But it's super cool. It challenges your creativity, right? Because they throw you curveballs, and when you deliver, they worship at your feet, and it's really fun, right? To get the customer coming home or open up that package and it's better than they imagined. So I do a lot of custom work. Most of, Mario's heard this, Billy's heard this, and I've had to sort of talk Don Moss Grakkus off a ledge at least 5 or 6 times because he's like, I would never want to do any of that custom work. It has to be ready to go in the mailbox, ready to go. In fact, I just put a stamp on it and it's ready to, Don's a good friend. He's out. But for me, I love doing one-offs. Everything being different is super, super fun for me. So that's kind of my story. That's what Junk Traders Outpost does. I got started during the pandemic and just keep on growing and going. Even if I don't have time, it does. Right? I put my shop on hiatus for 2 weeks so I could do some wonderful Star Cruiser adventures. And, I came back to a list longer than I could deal with really at that moment. So I had to tell some people to like unorder, and then I'll let them know when I have some time. It's been real fun. And I've got to meet these awesome gentlemen as well.
Well, you mentioned Star Cruiser, and
yes.
Nick had brought up, have you seen anything like crazy go on since it's the announcement of it being closed as far as like sales go with your shop? Or are you still, I imagine with people going to Batu, you're still probably cranking stuff out left and right because they want it for Batu.
Yeah, no, not everybody kind of telegraphs whether they are going, but if they are, they tell you. Because usually there's a deadline. Like literally the one I just showed you is like, oh, I need it done by this date because I'm going on this date, et cetera, et cetera. I'd say I haven't seen much of a dip, but then again, I really try to slow roll my stuff because it is so custom that I only open up enough slots that I can deal with for most products. And if it's something that is like, again, already made, there's plenty of it, but the custom stuff, like hypothetically, I could have 10 water bottles ready to go, on my shop, but I don't have time for 10. I can probably do like 3 or 4 at a time and do it justice and make sure it's done right. So I haven't seen too much of a dip. It is a little bit of a concern, but at the same time, I think for those folks who either haven't gone to the Star Cruiser or have been and still want to capture that magic, I think Batu bounding is going to be their next best drug.
For sure.
Right?
For
Because
sure,
that's kind of the only place they're going to be able to get that. And in some ways, I think that'll be cool.
Okay.
Right? Because more people in the parks bounding is always better and more fun for those of us who do.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
It beats the heck out of a Mickey Mouse t-shirt, you know?
You got it. You know, like last time I was in Oga's, there was probably about 3 or 4 people like doing it. And it's fun, right? Because you look across the bar and I go, you know, I want to talk to that guy. You know, and I literally walked across the bar and I go, yeah, hey, where'd you get that Greebly? You know, and I already knew the answer. You know? Right? Because you're like, it's a trap. I mean, chances are it's either Gracie Manor or, well, it could be 3. It could be Gracie Manor, Mos Gracchus, or trying to think or James's Jettisonable, right? Because he's been in the game the longest, right? So it's one of those 3 probably. And so, you know, it's always a 33.3% chance that I usually know. You know, and it starts up a conversation, right? Because those people are there to play, and it's always good.
Oh yeah. What would you say? I know you said you kind of run out of ideas, but I know with being in that custom world, because I do a little bit as well. I kind of have a little bit of both. I kind of do a little bit of custom, and then I do a little bit of just stuff I can kind of crank out. You know, it's
same.
I feel because I'm kind of like you. I kind of get bored with just doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I like having a little bit of both. But what are your as far as like creative process goes? Like for instance, you mentioned that Greedo mixed with like the Old Republic. Like,
yes.
What kind of starts you down that path? Do you go and like look at stuff on Pinterest, or do you go and like try to find concept, or like what's
never, because I don't want to be influenced by something somebody's already done. That's because that gets real dangerous for me, right? Because then even subconsciously, sometimes I'll replicate something that I saw maybe months or, you know, years ago. And that doesn't feel as right as I came up with this brand new thing. So I honestly go to kind of a couple different methods, and some of it is like very Lucasfilm, which is one of the, and I can't remember which one of the designers, but definitely Doug Chang has said it, is that Star Wars ships are so recognizable because they have a simple silhouette, right? And they want to make sure that a kid can draw it, you know, like, so if you think about a TIE fighter, it's like a circle and like 2 lines next to it, right? And an X-Wing is like super easy as well, right? So I kind of start there, which is what are the recognizable like shapes that really pop out to me that across a room or far away are going to jump out of the eye and go, oh, that's Jedi, or that's Sith, or whatever, right? So sort of shapes really help, right, with form language, right? I mean, we can tell Rebellion from you know, Empire or First Order really easily, right? Because the shape language is different. So I kind of go with that. Another thing I do, especially when it's like character based, is I think of things that immediately spark that character to mind. So when I think of Greedo, I think of colors, right? Because his colors are the most unique, right? Because of course he's green, but like that jumpsuit.
Oh, that bright blue, teal.
Oh yeah, is nowhere else.
Yellow stripes.
Used in a different scene. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I think of that, and then I also think of kind of like blending those two things together, which are like either props or items that are associated with them, or other shapes. So again, thinking Greedo, I think the colors, but I also think that ribbed pattern on the jumpsuit itself, right? Mm-hmm. It's if I remember, it's a horizontal line. So if I'm thinking Greedo, I was like, all right, I need some orange in there, I need some green, and I need something horizontal, whatever that may be, right? So that's kind of like the starting point. And then I can either get really on the nose with it and copy literally the shapes from his outfit, or you can go a little bit more abstract. And I find the more abstract a little bit more interesting, because then you can say, well, that's something I decided, as opposed to I'm just copying what the costume designer or the prop designer did, right? A friend of mine from my Star Wars book club, yes, I am in Star Wars book club, challenged me to do Kyle Katarn's blaster, as a water bottle, right? And I go, well, but very different, right? I hadn't thought of Kyle Katarn since the 90s. Right? I just hadn't even thought of that character, right?
Back in the day.
And it was, I was like, hey, Dan, I see you. Thank you for showing up the way that you are. Thanks for the deep pull. But then I go, oh man, how am I going to do that without being a little too on the nose? Because a water bottle is a cylinder and so is a gun, right? So a cylinder is a cylinder. And so I had to really think real abstract. So I brought in the bronze from the barrel because there's that ribbed bronze. I did a kind of an abstract pattern, kind of very similar to the back of this, where it was like alternating colors that also indicated like curvature just through the shadowing. And then did a custom top for it that made it look like the barrel of a gun. And that helped a lot. So yeah, I mean, again, the customer, quote unquote, whether they're a person you've never met or whether they're a friend, they're like equal partners with me. That they are super valuable to my creative process because they're always going to give me things that challenge me or stretch me in a new direction. Speaking of Dawn, Dawn asked me to do, again, it's all hydro containment units. It's all freaking water bottles. Like I do other things. I promise you, I really do. He's like, I want you to do a water bottle that looks like it's been on the floorboard of a land speeder for 25 years. Like, all right, challenge accepted. And hopefully I did it. Hopefully I did it.
Nice. Very cool. And then the last piece is just like, if people want to kind of get into maybe making a certain object look like it came from the world of Star Wars, like it just came off set or just came off the world.
Yes.
What would you kind of give them as maybe like a start to kind of doing that process?
Well, I think it kind of depends on what the thing is, but I'd say study the form language of Star Wars, right? So ask yourself as a viewer of Star Wars, like what makes it Star Warsy, right? to use that as a word, what's it Star Warsy? There are certain shapes that are pretty common. Like we all know, like the pill shape, right? So the rectangle with the curved top and the bottom that are used in so many different aspects, right? All the lighting, all the the details on the walls, et cetera, right? So just kind of like take in that form language and start playing around with it and see what you can do with it and add it to normal everyday objects. I mean, I'd say that's a good start, but. And we all benefit from this, but Star Wars is dirty. Mm-hmm. And so like I got a rare clean commission recently, and I have a little defect right down here. And so it looks out of place on this clean thing, right? But in a normal Star Wars commission, just dirty the hell out of it and you're good. Right? Yeah. So I'd say learn weathering techniques and start to mix and match them and have fun with them. I mean, I only have like 3 or 4 that I feel like I'm even really good at. I feel like I need to talk to Billi a little bit about graphite and how he uses that. And, there's definitely more out there to be learned, but, learn the language, form language, and then learn how to dirty stuff up. Those are 2 good starting places.
Very cool. Very cool. And then the final thing is, where can the good people find you at? Like Instagram, Etsy, your own website?
Yeah, so I'd say my shop is the easiest place to find. It's on Etsy, right? It's Junk Traders Outpost, and I've given you the link to share there. And then mine's the only curveball where my Instagram is different than my shop. So my Instagram is Grayanon, GRAYANON. I haven't switched it from my previous life, but I will eventually, I promise you. And I'd say the Instagram is a really great place to see what kind of stuff I do, because I do list stuff on there that I don't sell, right? Because it's usually for my own purposes. There's lots of stuff that I do just for myself. Like, I found this like cigarette case on the ground the other day, and I just turned it into my case for my cards, right? Because I needed That's something cool. to put business cards in.
I'll solo you for a second. You can show everybody.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a metal case that I literally found on the ground as I was walking. I don't know if you guys do that too. It's just,
I'm always picking up
stuff. There's a little bit of wire right there. I can use that
for my move.
Absolutely.
Just ground me.
a friend of mine made a stamp of my logo, so that really helps
sick.
A lot of branding. Our last guild meeting, that I was like doing a little detailed stamp for some branding as well.
Very cool, man.
The guys always notice that when we're on a meeting, I'm never like looking at the camera. I'm like down here, like what you doing with your hands?
Always working. No, very cool, man. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share your shop. I mean,
absolutely,
that's cool. I always love hearing how everybody else does their shops, because it's just like that's the one great thing about doing all this stuff is there's no really, there are some like guidelines to follow, but like there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's all experimental and it's all just us having fun. So like that's the coolest thing.
And also, like, necessity is the mother of invention for so many things. I mean, all of us have, well, not all, but I would say most of us have at least 2 devices that we use that are breaking constantly. Right? Yeah, so sure. Like I was full PLA extruder for the longest time, but I can't count on it. So I'm now like almost full resin. I wish I could go back to my extruder, because there's certain bigger pieces that are, of course, cheaper to print on an extruder printer. And I can't do some of my older products because no way in hell I'm doing it on resin. It'd be way too heavy and way too costly for me. Yeah. But right. I mean, we kind of like adapt and like, all right, so I'm not doing droid bases anymore. I guess I'm fully going into that other thing, you know, it's all good.
For sure, man. Yep. Well, Billy, man, you're next. How's it going?
Well, I'm Billy Maddox. My shop is MakerMaddox. Instagram's Billy Maddox. I am the purveyor of the Arabesh decoder, and it comes in many different shapes and sizes. But I think it was all working up to what is the relic, which is it's essentially billed and sold as a pendant, but it's really, in my head at least, it is a piece of an old device. It is a dial or a ring from something that has fallen off and has been found now. And I developed it in a sort of way to kind of connect, like how we all know that we're receiving the story of Star Wars from, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I'm trying to connect Earth to that galaxy by way of this relic that somehow at some point someone went through the uncharted regions, found a planet that speaks the same but doesn't write the same, and had to develop something in order to translate the languages, right? And using 2 different inspirations, I sort of used the like storied history of like Star Wars using camera parts and camera equipment for their props, and then also like a cereal box like decoder ring, right? I sort of mashed those 2 together and came up with the design, and then sort of through iterations finally was able to make what I had in my head, which is that sort of ring relic, which I think of it as, like, of course it's sold as a pendant, but I think of it as a dial from a larger machine that has been like found, that has fallen off of something and has now found. That's what I do.
Very cool, man.
That's really what I do. Aside from a bunch of cosplay, I mean, that's my real bread and butter shop item. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like I always hear Nick and Brad, Drake and Hosk always talking about you, but I've never actually like come into contact with you or heard about your shop. So it's interesting to finally have a face to all the stories, man. But that's cool. That's cool. So do you try to make them a little different? Do you try to make them all the same? Like how does your process usually, is it like more custom where people kind of tell you, hey, can I have like maybe like a gold one or a silver dial?
No, I do have them made, and I do have them sort of antiqued and kind of they're not really beat up, but they're antiqued so that they have that sort of relic feel.
Nice.
But yeah, it is something that I have manufactured. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. What kind of drove you to is it just the exploring the worlds of fantasy? Is that kind of what drove you making these, or is it like what kind of gave you your inspiration to because I know in a lot of fantasies that like what a lot of people do is they use fantasy to like escape, right? So escapism. And so like when you said the dials and going to other worlds and discovering other dialects, that's kind of what was in going through my head when you said that. But I was curious to see what you had to say on it.
I think it's always driven by something that I want to see like real, like, and something that I would perhaps even want to see canonized or something, you know? So I always had like an original character in my head or something that perhaps found this from, you know, and that it's now been discovered again, you know, and now being, you know, able to be distributed far and wide. So I think it's that it's a lot tied into original characters and some of the sort of tertiary characters of Star Wars that don't get the hero on-screen appearances.
Yes, the
still sort of, you know, bouncing around the galaxy doing their things. I mean, we have as of late a lot of content that has come out and will come out talking about these very people. I mean, that's Andor, that's even Mandalorian, that's even what's that new one? The with Jude Law that's going to come out. I'm really excited for that. Yes, I'm hoping that has somehow I can connect that relic to Skeleton Crew, because I think they're going to be exploring from what I understand, I think they may be exploring the uncharted regions, and that's right up my alley, you know?
If they didn't have some stuff in that, I'd be a little disappointed, because they said like the Goonies meets like, you know, like Han Solo kind of style stuff. And every time I think of the Goonies, I think of that little key that they have where they're like looking through and peeping through. So I think about that all the time.
I mean, these are all huge like inspirations for me in my childhood as well. Like it's the MacGuffin of it all, the little like handheld device of it all that sort of drove me. And I want to see this real. I want to, and also what really fuels me is being able to put it out into the world and seeing what other people then use it for, and use it like, you know, incorporate it into other builds. I did a collaboration with Mars from That Corner in Coruscant very early on, where he did these sort of greeblies that had the decoder on them, because I had a sticker version of it that was clear and you could just put that right onto something. I love seeing people use it as trophies, you know. A lot of Mandalorians have them off their belts as trophies.
Billy, let me show you something that you'll be thrilled by. I did not get to show this on my most recent voyage, but I've got this little relic thing that's got 3 guild members' stuff on it.
I love it.
Very cool.
Right?
Very cool.
So, you know, my character on this ship is a junk trader, but also deals in antiquities as well, right? So there's the stuff I've built, there's the stuff I've salvaged, but then there's my own treasures as well that I'm keeping for myself. Yeah. Of course, one of them is the relic.
I love that.
And then we've got these awesome droid fingers that Nick made. And then this is one of the rondelles that Anthony from Order 66 made. Yeah. And so this hung off my belt during dinner. It was like sort of like my dinner jacket thing to show off that I have these like really nice things.
Okay. I love that. You see that like really, that ignites me. That like really fuels me. And I love that. I love to see how people have used them. I've even used them. Like funny thing is I just finished like my Mando build, and it went immediately into a crate, into a box, and will be picked up tomorrow. So I even have one, like I have one on one of my gauntlets. Like I have, you know, so I love seeing people, how they use them, because I think of it as something, a part of something, you know. I think of it as a component to something else, rather than, of course it could be used as an end product for an end user, but like I think of it as a component to something, you know.
We have to,
still on my shop it says find purveyor of Arabesh decoder components on at my shop, and that's, you know, I want people to go there and say, how can I use this for something else? And that's really what drives me. I did a Mandoa one as well. I did a limited run where I did the same sort of treatment of a Mandoa one. I keep building up the story of it. So there's also an Empire version of the relic that's all like, shiny silver. And when I was promoting that, I did a video where I'm searching for like the origins of the relic, and I find that there's an Imperial one as well. And the video ends with with me saying, they were here, command, the Empire was here, and what I'm talking about is Earth. So I'm trying to trying to connect it all,
Right, for sure.
At some point, maybe they were here on Earth at some point, and we're now finding that, so that's really what drives me. Yeah.
Very cool.
Billy, we have to figure out a way to incorporate it into the hyperspace compass I'm making the files for.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that.
A little secret compartment or something like that. You can push a button and it pops out.
Secret compartment, right? Just like the heist.
Yeah.
Yes.
That they have those I forget the name of the boxes where you have to solve the puzzle, and then you get the little trinket inside once you solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
Kind of have something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
Codex.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love things like espionage. I love things like just archaeological stuff. I mean, these are all the movies that I grew up on. From Star Wars to now that Indiana Jones is back in there's a new movie and stuff like the Goonies that you mentioned before. I mean, these are all, this is all what I grew up on. So I think there's a lot of that in what I do as well.
Very cool. And that might play into kind of the next part that I'm going to ask you is if somebody wants to maybe create something like new from the world, or take something from our world and bring it in, what would you give them as advice to maybe start kind of making their own path and doing, because I feel like what you have is a very unique, very specific thing. What would you get? I know that's, you can kind of do broad strokes, because I know that's kind of a loaded question, but what advice would you give them to maybe set them down the path of finding something like that of their own?
I think I'll say two things. I think, going back to what Adam was talking about, definitely to familiarize yourself with the visual language. And there are people, I mean, I'm in a guild full of them. And I think of yourself as well, Max. There are people that can take, I love saying this to people that are creative. I hope it has the same effect on you, but there are people that can take the visual language and write poetry with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They can see it, and they can really kind of get their hands around it and mold it into what they truly want to see. And then sort of expanding on that, they say you should write what you know, right? So if you can combine those two things and study the visual language, know it, but then also take something that you're wholly interested in. I'm interested in trinkets. I'm interested in handheld sort of espionage devices. I'm interested in that adventure aspect of things, in relic hunting. So that's sort of, take something that you're passionate about and combine it with something, and then that will create something new that will feel in universe, that will feel in that same world. I think that's the one thing that I can do, rather than try to parrot what you've seen, try to take something that you're passionate about and turn it into something that could be from that world, from that universe, Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, why don't you let the good people know where they can find all your, I know you said it kind of at the beginning, but just one more time where they can find you on all the social medias and all that. MakerMaddox.com is my shop. I also have an Etsy that's under MakerMaddox as well. And you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most. And my Instagram handle is Billi Maddox. That's Billi Maddox. And that's where you'll see everything. You'll see what I have, available in the shop, as well as what I'm working on. I'm usually tinkering with some sort of prop or costume or something. I'm in the midst right now of, it's kind of snowballing on me, especially with my impending move to the UK. But I'm working on
the very early stages, very sort of infancy stages of a new costuming group, to hopefully foster like original characters. There isn't really a home for that. So Burgundy Squadron is another Instagram handle that I sort of I'm kind of working on right now. But there's 23 of us now. We all have original backstories. I think it's really focused on backstories and anything to do with if you've ever picked up a blaster against the Empire or the First Order, whether you're a rogue or a scoundrel or a smuggler and not exactly, part of the rebellion or the resistance, like this is the home for you,
Very
We're
cool.
a sort of super secret squadron that was never supposed to be known of, and we are everyone and we are no one. So that's sort of what I'm working on as well, and it's kind of snowballing, which is great. It's a good thing to have the interest in it. So that's also something.
And what's cool is those Burgundy Squadron folks can always find a friend in any of the Galactic Mercantile Guild shops, right? They know the secret codes. They know the secret knock. I'm sure some of them have picked up some stuff from Scum and Villaniy. Been to the Junk Traders Outpost on Lothal. They've been there. We know who Burgundy Squadron is.
Which is like heavily inspired by, I guess it's heavily inspired by what we saw in Andor. It's just people organized, but not in a way that's broadcasted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just involved.
The rebellion bubbles, even though it's not all wearing a uniform.
Well, didn't it start kind of as a joke a little bit too, right? So we were joking a little bit about the color palette of Ferret.
It did.
Right?
Yeah. It did. I wear a lot of burgundy. I think one of my characters is like head to toe. Burgundy. I also then like in my Mando in the sort of similar colors and stuff, and then it sprouted from that. And I was like, you know what? That's good. We need a color. We need a color. We need a call sign.
Heck yeah. Right on. Well, thank you for sharing your shop. And I hope we can all of us, we can all do this again. I think this is really fun. I want to continue to do stuff like this and spread the word. Cause like if you would have, you wouldn't have come on today, I would have never known about any of that. Yeah. I would have never known about any of you created like the backstories, how you make your shop, same goes for Adam. And I'm sure Mario here in a second, man, we're going to hear from you. So it's like, it's cool that, I really love talking about this stuff with you guys. Cause it's sometimes it just like, there's so much information being thrown at you constantly, on social media and stuff like that. So it's cool to kind of have a little slice of life and listen to other people who are like-minded. It's really cool.
Oh yeah.
But, past the mushy gushy stuff, Mario, let's go on to you, man. Let's introduce your shop and you and what you kind of make and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm Scum and Villaniy Acquisitions. You can find me on Etsy or Instagram under Scum and Villaniy ACQ, because acquisitions is kind of hard for people to spell. So it's really long. So
I know about long names for sure.
Right. I also have a Savak.com, a website my wife built for me, which is pretty much all like the same stuff, except for there might be like a little bit more community stuff in general on there. I don't know. She's the one who designs it all, so it's all great. But yeah, for the most part, I just make cosplay, specifically Star Wars cosplay, either armor or helmets and whatnot for cosplay or for collection. And I specifically I started out doing just raw casts. I've been slowly doing some, kind of painted stuff. Only just what I feel comfortable with, because I don't know, I have a hard time charging people like hundreds of dollars for painting. So I have other painters that I work with locally that charge that instead. So it's easy for me to kind of pass it along, create the canvas. But I also like the fact that it's like I'm literally creating a canvas for somebody else to paint on and to create. If they wanted to go with their own character, they can. And if they want to become part of Burgundy Squadron and they've got a full paint up on with a Mandalorian helmet or, their own design or something else got going on, then, sweet, I'm all for it. I like creating my own characters. I started out with Renaissance fairs and pirate festivals back in 96. And I started with like leather work and whatnot, and I got really used to like immersive selling and being a character. So no matter who I worked for as a vendor, I would be like the same character, and then eventually work my way into like a guild where we did performance art, and then it ended up becoming like maritime education sort of thing, which is really cool because then like all my leatherworking tools and stuff became a tax write-off. So I could write off a lot of my stuff. Same way as if I had owned a business. So it's like I kind of got the one thing the other, and now I'm also thinking about going back to doing some leather work and stuff, just for doing like some holsters and belts, mainly for myself. But it's like there's not a lot of people really doing it, especially with like the Star Wars stuff. But
yeah, I looked into it. Leatherworking, it's tough, man. It's tough to get into. It's a big time sink, that's for sure. And with the prices going up on everything, I can imagine leather's probably not cheap right now.
No, it's not. And a lot of stuff that I'm working with, I've been sitting on for over a decade. So like if I went to a store, I'd probably have a heart attack looking at some of the stuff. Or right now, I'm like, I have everything. I've done way too many hobbies. I do leatherworking, woodworking, welding, forging.
I feel that.
For the last 3 years, since as long as Nick's known me, I started getting into silicone and fiberglass and resin, something I've never worked with before, at least not in this capacity. I did construction work and worked with some silicones there, but industrial silicone and this silicone is way different. And it definitely reacts differently in curing times and stuff like that. So it's been really fun. I started out because I was like kind of missing my community. I live up in Portland, Oregon now, so I'm in Goonies country. So I really love all the Goonies references because like I've been to Astoria so many times just to go walk around and like see the old house and all the stuff. And like, they even have like a Goonies day up there. It's amazing.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Oh yeah. They'll bust out the car. You'll get to see the house and all that stuff. And there's a bunch of pictures out there. It's pretty cool. And that's all the way up in Astoria. But yeah, when I was in California, I used to do all the Renaissance fairs, pirate festivals, and we used to see all the Star Wars guys. And I used to be one of those guys who used to make fun of them, even though I was like, some armor, but what are you doing here? And then when I finally kind of got bored with like Renaissance fairs and stuff after like 15, 20 years, and we moved up to Portland, I was like, I met Roland Effects, Dragonborn Jedi, and later on expanded my community. And Roland, Jeremy had shown me how to do all these things. He needed help with his shop, and I'm literally living like 2 blocks away. So I'd go over, help him with the stuff. He would show me the stuff, and eventually he would give me a mold because he couldn't pay me, and it wouldn't be A grade anymore, so it would be like worn out. And he would just be like, "Well, let's see if we can make some money with it." I'm like, "Okay." And so I just started doing nothing but B casts. And that's how I became acquisitions. And then as things grew, I started acquiring more molds from other people. I even have a couple molds, I think, from Nick and his early designs of his droid
very
fingers.
Early on.
Oh, yeah. I still got those molds, man. I still use them.
Nice.
Whenever I've got, because I talked with him early on because I'm a disabled veteran. I have like discounts for disabled veterans, and I also have like free gifts. So one thing that I could appreciate watching the Clone Wars, and that's what I personally kind of attached to as like my fandom, even though I grew up with it from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm an original trilogy fan, but I'm just a Star Wars fan. So like I will consume anything, cartoons, all that stuff. It's like my older brother actually got me into Clone Wars because we loved it as a kid. As soon as Obi-Wan Kenobi was like, "Oh yeah, I started Clone Wars." Luke and we were, as kids, we're just like, "Clone Wars, what's that?" And like my brother and I just became obsessed with it. And then when it came out as a cartoon, I'm like, I'm kind of old for that. And my brother was like, "No, you're not." So I started binge watching the Clone Wars, and I was like, "Dude, this is like heavy." Really heavy. And
especially after season 3, it's usually real heavy.
It's just like even in the first series, that's when they start bringing up. I think it was Slicer, and they had the droid fingers and why he was collecting them, and that's like old Vietnam War era reference, like cutting the ears off their kills and stuff. Like that's some dark stuff for a kid's cartoon. But like me as a soldier can immediately relate to it of like just of people that you've lost, and it was like there's a lot of stuff in that in the Clone Wars. Recognizing mental illness and just like the depression of like, later on, I think it was even season 7 when it was like Rex was looking at like a picture or hologram or whatever of like all of his clone buddies and stuff. And, you know, it's like, it's hard being the survivor. And it's like, that is so true. Yeah. But anyways, aside from all that stuff, like, so going back to like immersion, like I've kind of built my own booth, like cosplay Old Man Rex. So I kind of have that whole feeling like if somebody comes to my booth, I want them to feel like they're walking into the universe. They're meeting some Clone War veteran. He's got some scattered shit that he fell off a battlefield he's not supposed to have. Guess what? It's for sale. And so like that's kind of my thing. So I have kind of like I melded that Old Man Rex into like my own character a little bit. You know, this is what Rex is kind of doing right now. Maybe just to get a couple credits. You know, eventually I'd love to build a trailer to look like the Phantom 1, and then just open the whole thing down and just pull my boxes out and just have that be my backdrop and just like have people just look at it and stare. Because like I said, I've done welding, I've done all sorts of different backgrounds that I could easily build the trailer. It's just a matter of time and money. But yeah, I definitely can appreciate like the guild, because a lot of the guild I think really enjoys like the immersion of Star Wars and going back to like looking at like, oh, how would you age things and stuff. Like if you go online, you'll see postings of my booth that I keep redesigning over and over and over again. Because it's metal, I can just keep re-welding it, cutting it apart, redoing it. But I painted it once and I've left it out in the rain, and I've let wind, debris, dust, whatever get on it. I might occasionally brush it off, and I might occasionally put a new stencil on and graffiti it with something new, but I just leave it alone. And I think natural weathering for people, if they want to know how to get things dirty, look around. Go to your old school or something and look around and see, because all they're going to have is like these old metal posts that are probably painted yellow. They've been chipped off from people learning how to drive, but you're going to look at the layers of it. You're going to see the texture of it. You know, look at old, one of my other favorite ones too is old gas cans or old propane tanks and beaten up. You know, look and see what's rusted. Look at the colors. Look at the weld marks. You know, what does that look like? You know, and then just think about what colors you have at home, what's shiny, you know, and just, you know, look around. You know, one thing that I think is really important if other people want to like get into, build your community. You know, look at artists that you want to support. With me, like I support a bunch of 3D artists the smaller guys that have like all of a sudden now just kind of blown up, like Emistry and Galactic Armory. You know, I'd rather support smaller artists, but I've supported Marco since the beginning. So to me, he still is kind of a small artist. It's blown up. You know, but I love working with like other people that like you guys, you know, you guys could design something off the top of your head and like 3D art and like have it ready by the end of the day. And I'm sitting here going, I would have carved it out of wood. Because I just don't have those skills. I'm just, you know, way too old school for that. But yeah, I really enjoy seeing what people do with my armor, my helmets, and, you know, and as more stuff sells, then I just look for, you know, things that I would want. Like I haven't had a lot of female helmets for a while, so I started like putting a lot of focus on the armor, on Bo-Katan, and then I've been sitting on Sabine for a while because I wanted to do the newer helmet versus the animated helmet, because I've had permissions for that for years, but I'm just like, I want to see the new one. You know, so I'm sure once those guys get that design, I'll have that one ready to go, and, you know, I'll be putting that one out. But yeah, trying to eventually, if I can, like, I want to do clone armor. I don't know if I'd ever want to do TK or anything like that, but I would love just to eventually just build like a whole clone army. And that's just like my eventual goal for
Clone War style or more realistic.
I personally like the animated style, but I think that because I do offer both the animated and the realistic styles, and I offer the realistic Rex, and I'm working on animated Wolf, and I'm going to be working on animated Rex as well. I just like love focusing on the clones. They're so diverse. There's so many personalities. I just feel that there's also like a huge fan base, and a lot of the Mandalorian stuff has just been really fun. Because it's the same thing. You can create your own. You don't have to do a main character. You can create your own. Like my Mando is a tribute to my Army days, so it's all Army colored out, like kind of Vietnam era. You know, I've got the yellow kill stripes, but I put them on the back vent instead. so that way no one could actually see where your head was or something like that. I've got like a netting on it, so it looks totally army, so like that's my that's actually the same character I play as Rex. It's like that was what happened to my Clone Wars veteran after he was done with the war. Like, where did they go? We're finding out now, but I figured like, well, he was a clone of a Mandalorian. I figured maybe a whole cache of them would have just gone right back to Mandalore. Might have been accepted, might have been completely rejected, and then they're like, well, fine, I'm just going to take the armor and go. I mean, if they're obviously great killers, I'm figuring a few clones would have gone in the armor. They would have like continued their fight. They would have had the anonymity of the helmet, something that they would recognize and they could personalize it to themselves, So I'm hoping in some way with Dave being involved that maybe we might see some clones in the Mandalorian section.
Well, we got a little sprinkle of that, and I mean, it was still clones rescuing clones, but in the newest Bad Batch with them like doing the clone prison, and like I was like when I saw that in Bad Batch, I was like, this is what we've wanted the whole season.
Right?
I was like, this is what I was like. Show us more of this. I was like, we want more clone rescue and clone.
I know we're all just addicted to clones.
It cracks me up. It's just like because like I grew up with. Revenge of the Sith. I grew up with the prequel trilogy where like, I don't know, maybe I just didn't talk to enough people, but like I always thought they were cool because I always had a thing for helmets and like cool looking stuff. But like most people grew up with like the Clone Wars show and all that stuff. The clones were buttholes. There was no chips. There was no nothing. They were just buttholes that were just like the Jedi are treasonous, kill them. And they do it. And it's crazy to see how they were transformed into these people who were like, oh, they just kind of look cool. And they just kind of, they were supposed to be like more menacing stormtroopers to like giving them so much character. And like anytime a clone dies, like on all the social medias, it's just like flooded with like, no, like right. when Mayhem
they introduce you with a clone nowadays with the first name, you're like, oh, here we go.
Mayhem got one episode. And everybody Mayday. I always say Mayhem. Always say Mayhem. But like everybody like lost their mind when that episode came out, Yeah. So it's cool to see the transition and like how much love the clones have gotten over the years. Like I said, I don't really know if they got any hate. I just know they were kind of viewed as kind of like buttholes that just kind of just they killed the characters that we love. They killed all the Jedi, we loved all the Jedi, and
for me and my brother, that was kind of always like the question though. It's like what really happened, and he'd always read all the books and stuff and would tell me about it. I'd consume other stuff like the comic books and stuff, and so we would chat back and forth, and that's like how we connect even still. Like, if there's a new show out, guaranteed within an hour or two or the next morning, my brother's calling me. So just watch it.
Yeah. It's like
yes, the best part. It's my business now. Of course I'm watching it.
I believe unless it was in a comic book, because there's so many comics, it's hard to read. I believe that the chips being introduced was in the show, because in Battlefront 2005, like the video game, when they got Tamora voicing him, he didn't say anything about the chips. He just said, we all knew what we were about to do. The Jedi are treasonous and we had to follow orders because they were marked as treasonous to the Republic, which they loved and they were fighting for, or mixed emotions. But yeah, it's so crazy to see how that's cool, man. That's cool. I like the
clones that are also both the good guys and the bad guys.
Oh,
and they're like, but it's okay that they were the bad guys because there was a reason for it.
Yeah.
I also kind of like that as well, because it's like, if you dress up in cosplay, and especially like one of the first ones I've been going for is Vaughn, or one of the 330 seconds, like my favorite. I'm like 99%. I only got a couple more things to do, then I can submit to the local 501st. But like, I just want to walk around, and it's just as soon as I see a Jedi, I just be like, like, just switch, or I have the kill shot on mine. That's where I started, was the kill shot. I worked my way back with Bond to get all the paint jobs. So, and I noticed I'm the only one who has the kill shot. And so I thought that every time if I go to Comic-Con, like every time I see an Ahsoka, just to fall down, be like, oh, I'm sorry. Just like do the dramatic death every time. I just think it'd be hilarious. But
very cool.
I think you've hit upon something. That story is really important to us, right? That none of us talked about the business. None of us talked about profits. None of us talked about like how to manipulate customers into spending more with us. It's all about us carving out our own little sort of place to play. And we do that through contributing as opposed to taking, you know, and right. Max was kind of like geeking out for a minute. Like, I didn't know Mario's story. I knew a little bit of Billy's story, but like in this forum, we're able to sort of share, you know, how we get up in the morning and we imagine that we're part of it. Again, not to a sick level. We do go to our day jobs, right? But at the same time, like what's great about playing in this universe is we can suspend and have a little bit of believability and put it on the shelf for a little bit. And when I get up in the morning, I go to my shop and I start my printers and I let out my stuff, you know, my stuff that I need to get done for the day, just as I would if I really were that OC that owns a shop on Lothal, which is my sort of my backstory, right? And I think that's what's kind of cool is that, you know, we can put on our day clothes, but maybe underneath we're still playing a little bit, you know? And I think that's what kind of keeps us going. I don't know about you guys, but it keeps me going, which is
it keeps me entertained. You know, I definitely like whenever something gets like really popular or something, and I have to jump on some of those bandwagons, like the flasks.
Yes.
Yeah, those flasks were dope. I had to do that. And then what was it when the dad patch they started painting up those mics, and I'm not even using mine now. But my wife, I think my wife actually uses it more than I do. But I had to paint mine up because I was like, that's just so sick. You know, I just wanted just to flex a little bit on some of the skills that I feel that I have. You know, not a lot, you know, but I'm still like, I just want to flex with some of the big boys sometimes, you know, especially with some of the other guild members we got. You guys are painting all the time. And I'm like, I make the canvas.
Well, it keeps us engaged, but it keeps us young.
Yeah.
It keeps us, to your bigger question, it keeps us creative, right? Because we're stimulating that part of our brain that says, all right, it's time to play and let's go to work. You know, and I think that, again, I've told this story as many times as I can, but that's what Star Wars invites of us because it's baked into two aspects of it, right? One is that it's for kids. It's for that sort of young point of view, which is let's go on an adventure and let's play. Right. But also the guys back in 77 are doing exactly what we're doing now, right? And it invites us to, right? Which is let's kit bash, let's create, let's make things out of nothing. Yeah. Right? The whole franchise asks that of us. And so we get to participate, and until we get our cease and desist orders, which we
right, yeah, exactly. But see, the thing is, though, is that I don't think that's going to come. I think that they're going to see what we do well, and then it's just like Amazon. They're going to be like, oh, well, the statistics show they're going to make a lot of money there, so we're going to start selling that in our shop.
Yeah, they're not going to shut us.
They're not going to shut us down because they found out that it's cheaper to hire us than it is to have their studios do it. You know, that's why they had the whole 501st. I mean, look at how much money did they save getting a bunch of fans to come in and pay them like whatever wage actors that they did, if it wasn't pure volunteer already, just to geek out and go play, you know, for like a week or 3 weeks, however long some of these guys were stuck on there. You know, I personally wouldn't want to be on screen. I would much rather have been one of the other dudes getting water or like building the set or like, oh, here, you need this blaster. Oh, you need that. Cool. Like I would have rather been a runner or been like a caretaker for some of the crew that would want to be on set. I've always been more behind the scenes guy, even though I've done a lot of performance art. Like when I heard that some of those guys had to be on set for like 18 hours standing in the uniforms, and I'm like, nah, I'm too old for that now. Maybe in my 20s. Maybe in my early 20s when I was dressing in hot leathers doing Renaissance and Pirate Festivals in the heat of California, maybe I'd have been dumb enough to do it. But now, no. Give me the props. I want to make the props. Yeah, I'd rather like build the sets, weld something together for somebody, and then watch people go have fun. You know, that's what I love about this. Is the fact that I get to do that pretty much. You know, if they whatever they want. They want armor. They got something like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll make you some armor. And here you go. Here's some resin. Enjoy. You know, and this opened up so many doors too. Like just trading with other people. I think I just traded with, today I traded with Bounty helmets. He needed like a Bo-Katan helmet off of me. And I was like, you have phase 1, don't you?
I sent him to you when he was looking for people. Nice. I always take care of the guild.
Hell yeah, dude. Much appreciated, man. Yeah, I know. No, it's that was a good connect for sure. I'm stoked now that I'm going to get like a legit phase 1. I don't have one in my collection, so I'm like,
Nice.
And
so,
with
yeah.
very few exception. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, that's kind of like what happened with a lot of it. I've done a lot of trades with Minute Fed. I've gotten a lot of molds off of him, and a lot of other artists. Pilsner Props is another guy that's done some amazing work. I've got his animated TK. I picked up also like one of his early original design C3PO helmets before. I think it was Alpha Ignition picked up the mold off him before I could get to it. But yeah, it's like, I just became acquisitions. I just kind of got into it, and I started making my own molds with some other artists to help me out, like Roland Effects and a few others, and like again with Nick too, doing some trades. It's like it's been amazing, and meeting Billi and Adam and all the rest of the guild. It's just an amazing group of people and artists, and it's like we're all here for the same reason. It's just to really have fun. And if like we do well of it, it's because we're passionate about it, and that's great. It's up to us to whatever we want to use our profits of our labor for. But for me, it just seems like it just keeps expanding the community, even more, and being more immersive for everybody to kind of jump in and be like, hey, I want to do this. How do I do this? And it's like, here, we'll show you. And I feel like that has been like lacking, in the community for so long because, it was always like a drug dealer. Basically, you got armor? Where'd you get the armor?
It's so funny you bring up.
You meet somebody in a parking lot somewhere, and you get a box, and you're like, not sure if it's good or not.
Hey, you want to buy some death sticks?
Yeah, we've been doing that.
Seriously,
like peer pressure.
And you take this box home, and you want to rethink your life.
Yeah, we've been joking that we used to, pressure people to try drugs, but now it's like, hey, open an Etsy store. Right? I mean, 100%. We're all pressuring each other.
Oh, man.
I mean, I think you bring up another really good point, Mario, is that for a while, for a good chunk of time, people were a little, I don't want to say stingy necessarily, but a little protective of their methods.
There's been a lot of
like it's really opening up.
I think the technology, like Instagram and stuff like that, has really opened up a lot of artists. I mean, yes. I even have like the original designer, I'm totally spacing his name, but the guy who designed the Darth Vader helmet. He follows my account.
Right on.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like, dude, you created Darth Vader. Like that's insane.
Well, I think
it's like the connections between people has gone from like 7 connections to like nothing. You can directly contact people. And I think a lot of people, especially with the pandemic, really opened a lot of people up to like want to show what they do.
Yep.
And that's what that was the time frame that I kind of got into this, because I needed something to do to keep me creative. And I think it happened with a lot of professionals too. They started becoming more open about their techniques. They started maybe doing some private classes, or they just kind of wanted to show other people like, hey, I'm still relevant. Can I get a job? Here's my portfolio. And everybody's doing the exact same thing. So it's because of that, I think, a lot of people have opened up and they want to show other people. And this is definitely a new medium which you can do it, as opposed to just like telling somebody to go hit the forums. You tell somebody to go hit the forums, like you will never see them again.
No.
And so those of us who have and have made their way through it, are just like, if we really want this community to grow, we've got to help them get there, and so so you have to be a lot more inclusive. And, I remember being that young kid, wanting to get into the Ren fairs going, how do you do this? How do I become one of these people? How do I be a freak like this? And here, let's show you, kid, and I met some amazing leather workers back in the day that aren't around anymore. Some of them actually worked on Pirates of the Caribbean. It's amazing, like what I have just been, who I've been lucky to meet over the years. And now it's pretty much kind of like the same situation with the guild and being online. The community has just grown, so much, and everybody's so interconnected. It's really an awesome thing,
Well, also, maybe this is more of a guild thing, but when we share techniques, it inspires us to apply them, and it grows us all, right? Mm-hmm. So there's like 11 or 12 of us, and when somebody does something new and we show it off, we go, damn, you got there first. Good job. Right? It's like, all right, how do I counter that? How do I, it's not a competition. It's more like, again, what is it, the saying, like the rising tide rises all boats, raising, like that. But then also, like, there's no need to be stingy because the information's already out there, right? It's actually saving some people time. And I don't know about you, but I don't like seeing good techniques misapplied, and it makes us also look bad in some ways.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a difference between sharing a technique and a person applying the technique.
Yeah.
Right. The sharing is free, but then the artist has to come into play. Right. And so when that person then applies that technique properly, or you yourself are acquiring a technique that you've gotten from somebody else, you have to kind of use it responsibly. Yeah. And I think that's what kind of grows the community and grows the goodwill. Right. Because the goodwill actually helps everybody, as opposed to, because there's some toxicness out there as well.
Oh, the fandom menace is nothing. It's nothing to be trifled with.
Oh yeah. I
mean, even in sharing techniques, like even if we all have all the information, there's going to be something that you're inherently good at. Like I have a strong feeling that we all have a superpower, and even if you have all the tools at your disposal, there'll be that one thing that you do that's like better, and then that's what you can focus on, and that's what you can help other people with, Yeah. I think it's good to have it open, and it definitely takes the application of it, but then there's also, that X factor of like, wait, there are some people that specialize as well. They have all the information, but they're the best at this and the best at this, and then you kind of, you get more tutelage, more information from them.
And in our guild, without almost fail, like we all have overlapping techniques, but we all have unique techniques as well. Right. So
what's really cool is there's always something a little bit different. Like we're always like spurring each other on about like, specifically what you're doing, and then what you're doing, and then what you're doing. I love seeing that too. It's like, Nick works with props and stuff. I think Nick's probably the closest one who does anything close to really what I do, but you finish a lot of stuff. So
I've got 4 of yours on my
we've
wall.
built a relationship over the years. You've gotten quite a few of my helmets over the years.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. And that's always really fun. So, like I said, I love getting to watch and see what people do with my stuff, because it's like, that's badass. It's like,
and you'll see some on screen later this year too with Kestis.
That's right.
Nice. That'll be awesome. I'll definitely put that on my website.
The tan one and the gray one, those are both screen used now. Well, and I guess mine too, but you didn't make that.
Well, let me know when you guys need some jetpacks. I'm just starting that. I got Minute Fet's jetpack mold that he used. I think it was used in one of their fan films or something like that. So I gotta
nice.
But yeah, I still gotta figure out. It's a 2-part mold, but that was a little pricey.
Yeah, they're pretty large. I have my jetpack from 7 Cat Studios, I think it was called. It's pretty big.
Yeah, there's a lot of room in there. I'm trying to make mine hollow, so that way there could be plenty of room for whatever people want to do with it. And so I'm like doing like a kind of a double coat of resin all around, and then doing a layer of fiberglass. And then after that, trying to see if I can get, when I push the two together, to see if the silicone will, or not silicone, but the resin will seal it together as one. And then we'll see how pull it out. And then, that'll be probably mine. This is the first one. And then I'll hopefully get a better technique and see how that goes.
Nice.
Right on. Well, Mario, I wanted to ask you one more thing, partly for me, because I want to get into making molds and resin and stuff like that, but also I know that's something that I've heard a lot of people say that they wanted to get into. I know there's a whole process. You don't have to break down the whole process, but what would you recommend to people who kind of wanted to kind of get into that arena, whether it be with Star Wars or anything, just making molds in general, or even I know you said buying molds too, even like looking at molds to buy,
Yeah. Some people, you get lucky, they post them, and if you've got a good amount of cash, because the resin can be expensive. But the silicones, and they're definitely expensive. Like you're looking at like $500 a gallon here. So if you're looking at like getting into mold making, like sadly that is going to be an expensive hobby. But if you're like making, like with the rest of the guild, I actually would tell you guys to invest some money in making some molds, because once you guys have that one Greebly that fucking hits everybody's, like that one spot, like they want that one. Like you could just make a mold of it, and then you're just pouring resin in, and it takes like 15 minutes, and you have another one. You don't have to put it in, and they're sturdy. You can throw a thing down the street. You don't have to worry about it like melting in the sun of a 3D print or breaking off a chip when, it's maybe like resin printed. Like I would definitely tell the rest of the guild, if you're making Greeblies, take the time, clean one up, get rid of the 3D print lines unless you like the specific style and look, and then make your molds and then go from there. And it's gonna be cool because then after that you can really mess with it. You can do a lot of things with resin and dig into it, drill into it, do a lot of things that you can't normally do with like a regular resin print because it's so fragile, or a 3D print that would just break. But so beyond it, like being expensive, getting into mold making, I would say find your 3D artists first. That was one thing that was really difficult for me to get into. Like it took me like years to get these models to be able to use. And by that time, like some of the major guys were like, "Oh, I might as well just make that model and do it." And it's like, I've been begging you for 3 years, dude. Are you kidding? But initially, it was really difficult to find people who would allow you rights to use their models. So that's the first thing I would is find out which artists allow you to use their models. And then if you want to get into 3D printing, then go into it, get into it. I think that's going to be a bad idea. I subcontract all my 3D printing out. I don't have the patience for it. And then from there, you'd have you have your master, and then you can clean up your master, get rid of the lines, or if you find somebody who actually has like a large enough resin printer, they can get like a clean one perfectly done up. Then you can, pour your silicone on, make your mold, and then you'll want to make a casing outside of that you can look on. You can go straight to smooth on. They show so many demos on how to create molds.
Yeah.
They have really, really good videos and tutorials on how to do it, how to measure out so that you're not wasting a bunch of silicone like me, just figuring it out, going, I'm old enough up here. I know how to do it. So I probably waste a lot of money doing that. But yeah, I'm more old school. So yeah, find your artist, find people to help you out that maybe print it out if you're looking for 3D models, and then, look up people to do the cleaning work. Because a lot of people will probably want to maybe mold right away, then it looks like you have a 3D print. And that's not going to work when you're going to paint it or do that. People are still going to have to sand down those lines. So take the time, make it look like it's perfect. And it took me years to figure that out, because every time I would take one of my molds over take one of my masters over to Germany, who was training me all this stuff. He's like, "This looks like shit." And I'm like, "What? I polished it." He's like, "With what? 400 grit?" So it's like, and it's good to have people around you too that push you to be better, and to make a better quality of product. And so I definitely have learned over the years, it's going to take time. What you see may look amazing and what other people may not. And especially if it's your customers and they don't think it's so great, you're not going to get the best reviews or whatever. But, I try to always make sure that, the product is what the customer wants. If it's not something that I can provide, then I will absolutely give the sale away to somebody else and be like, this is the level that you're looking for. If you don't like the price, I can't help you there. But this is what you're looking for. This is what will make you happy. If you buy something off of me, we're going to have a problem. You're going to send it back, because a lot of people maybe don't want to do this stuff themselves, or, but other people do. They love it. So I love having a nation. I'll probably just stay there and just keep a lot of raw stuff and then paint stuff as I want, and sell them off as people like them or something.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, thank you guys, all you guys again, for coming on and talking and hanging out. I hope you guys watching all this stuff got some good information out of this. Definitely go check out all their shops. All the information will be down below, all their Instagrams, shops, all that jazz. So, hey, James, what's going on, man? I'm glad you could pop in with us today and talk a little bit about your shop.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. I love talking to Star Wars fans. And then I also love talking to people who love to make just stuff in general, but also it's even better if they like Star Wars stuff, because that's that's the main thing. But tell us a little bit about your shop and kind of how it got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of originally, I grew up in the back of my dad was an electrician. I grew up, just being family business, grew up in the back of his electronics shop. So being in the back of the shop, always had all this electronic stuff opened up, backs of, televisions and, heaters, radiators and radios and lamps, back, earlier before, when you could actually fix things. Right. So, so my dad would always have, all this stuff opened up, and I just thought it was the insides of this kind of stuff, so mesmerizing, all this old school tech, all this tubes and belts and gears and things like that. So I've always kind of been into that aesthetic. And then being just growing up with Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie I saw in theater was Return of the Jedi. That's like the first one I remember, right? Yeah. So that was cool. Like, I was still pretty young, but that was still, Star Wars was so popular. That's what we all played, in the playgrounds. Every jungle gym was either an X-wing or the Millennium Falcon, right? So that was just
nice.
that was just, as you're young, you use your imagination. It was just so, so much fun. So just, really grew up with it, and really wanted to, always was a maker, always a tinker and a fixer. I think I got a lot of that from my dad, being, like I said, I was, working in the shop too, just kind of, making stuff and, welding things together and gluing stuff together and kind of making stuff. And then, really just, fast forwarding way forward kind of in the, kind of started a couple months before the pandemic, but, in 2020, but everything really hit in the pandemic, where it was like, wow, you really can't go anywhere, really just can't, can't really, do the stuff we like to do. It's just my wife and I, we like to travel. We like to go places, go out to dinner, and just go out and do things and just be out generally. And, it's like, wow, we're going to be at home a lot. And, that kind of, let me focus on just kind of staying in, and hey, I'm just going to keep playing with all these Greeblies, these design aesthetics, all this stuff. But I really feel like I kind of had a background from it, just being around all this old school tech, from growing up from my dad's electronic shop, and just kind of knowing, I could recognize a lot of parts and recognize a lot of things, but knew I kind of wanted to do my own spin on it. So I just really just self-taught myself, some basic 3D modeling skills, some, bought a 3D printer for a few $100s, real,
Nice.
$200. My first printer was $200, right? Didn't want to jump too far in. So it was like $200, get a printer, start working on some stuff. And I was making some stuff, and everything was just for me, right? And my wife, who's always been so supportive, she was like, you should put this on Etsy. And I'm like, and no one's going to buy it. No one wants anything, right? So I put it on Etsy, it's 20 cents, right? So 20 cents. Okay. This is there. It's on Etsy, leave me alone. Right. So, and then like I got my first sale, and I'm like, I'm sure it was one of her friends or something. And it was like from some dude in Ohio. I'm like, she doesn't know anyone in Ohio, and then just, it just grew from there. Really learn, and I learned a lot. Most of the products I had earlier on the store, and back then I was focusing on just standard. It was 80 mil by 40 mil, just Greeblies that people could either put on their sabacc cases or build out their kit cases with it, or they were all magnetic too, where they could pin it on their jacket or something like that. And that was kind of the original idea. It was for the person that wanted to go to, it was for the Galaxy's Edge, more casual person that maybe didn't want to, quote unquote, not ruin's not the right word, but, really dedicate a whole jacket to the Star Wars aesthetic. But they're heading in to get, they're coming out of Fantasyland, they're heading to Galaxy's Edge, they've got their jacket on, and they could just magnetically snap one of our Greeblies on their jacket. Instantly kind of turns it, quote unquote, Star Wars or in universe or whatever you'd like to say. And then they could go have a day, cosplay a little bit. And then when they leave, they could just pop it off, and it's kind of a lower barrier to entry other than, permanently modifying a, $200, $400 jacket, right? They could just pop it on. And I got really good feedback from all that. People loved the magnets, that they could just magnetically, put things on, take things off. And it wasn't such a commitment. They could kind of feel like they were cosplaying, and they didn't have to. And then they weren't feeling so much out of place when they left, Galaxy's Edge, Batuu, that kind of stuff. So that was really just talking to customers, what do you use this for? How do you use it? And that was kind of exactly how they used it. So I kind of filled a niche there that I kind of, thought in my own head, right? That's something I wanted, right? That was like, how do I I want to make a product, it was under $10 to $12 that people could kind of modify their existing stuff, make it look a little bit more in universe, but not have to commit so much to, modifying it to, permanently modify something. And then they didn't feel, also for a comfort level, and I got just a lot of feedback on this. I didn't feel so out of place. Like I said, you come out of Batu with your Star Wars gear, and then you head right into Fantasyland, and people are kind of, or something like that. And people are like, where, what's going on here, kind of a thing. So that was originally, but really from my electronics background, always ever since the platform came out, always loved Arduino and that whole platform. I'm very comfortable with programming for that. Really focused, my main focus is on all my electronic greeblies and pieces. We sell and always, honestly, my goal has been to keep the price point as low as possible. I really do try to keep prices low. Before the pandemic, before the chip shortage, I could get a lot of the pieces down to under $30. That was for a full electronics package with light up lights and a whole kit for under $30. And I was really happy with that price point. After the pandemic, the prices had to go up a couple, $10-$20, but that was really just because it's a direct correlation to chip prices, right? So it was I just had to work that in, but my goal was really just to keep things as affordable as possible. I really wanted this stuff out there as much as possible. So
to cut in right there,
sure.
Real quick. So you're saying, so prices did go up for, because like that's the one thing that I know for like my business and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I talk to my roommates all the time. I'm like, it's crazy. The big one I use is spray paint, because like, I remember when spray paint was like $2-3 and now it's like $6 or $7. And like, you might not think that that's a lot, but if you need 3 or 4 cans of spray paint, that stuff adds up. So it's interesting to see that, it's kind of happening widespread. It's not even just like, crafts. It's even like, our Arduinos and the chips that you use, and probably the lights and all that. So
yeah. And I don't gatekeep anything. Someone's like, what's this? And, can you tell me what you use? I go, absolutely. I mean, the code sets are mine. I spend a lot of time with the code itself, but, like parts list, I'm not really selling the parts per se. You could go on, Amazon and buy all the stuff. And especially if someone wants to reprogram the stuff, which I have a lot of clients that do that too. I'll get you started. I'll load it up. But if you want to, I keep all the ports open. You can plug in anything that I make. You could plug in a USB. I'll send you the same, a lot of the same websites for free that I use to get going on coding. I'll send you everything. I'll send you the video tutorials. I'll send you, my wiring schematics, how it's wired, because when I put it together, I glue it all together just so it's all protected. But I'll tell you, you don't have to open it up. You don't have to, hey, I'll give you all my pinouts. I'll give you all my wiring schematics. I'll give you all the websites. So someone can take something that I built, that I shipped them. They could either use it with the code that I put on it for I have a light bar series with 3 different kind of patterns, like a random pattern and kind of a flashing, a red pattern that goes back and forth. And then we also sell, which have been extremely popular, 2 different sizes of OLED screens, kind of a 1 inch and kind of a 2.5 inch, and with different patterns on both of those that look very in universe. And the cool part about those is that people get to dictate the message that it reads out, and everything's in either Arabic or the Mandalorian script. So and I've had so many, it's really fun to see, like, it's people put in Arabic or what the messages are going to be and what they're going to do. So that's been really cool. And people build that into their, I've had everything from just like body armor kits. One customer built a whole Star Wars bar, and so he bought,
that's cool.
He bought a bunch of them for the bar, and he had all these little things in Arabic. And it just looks like the little Arabic scrolling by, but it's like, it was like so-and-so loves so-and-so, or, certain messages of, hope, or certain people's initials or their kids' initials and all these things. So it's all these, I really haven't had any real duplicates, maybe like a couple, like, this is the way or something like that, but everyone comes at it with a different way, with some custom message, like, initial set, or just so-and-so loves so-and-so, or all these different messages. And it's just, it's these little 1-inch screens that people could either use my frames that I sell to kind of, that way they're just, you could just put them on their case and, ready to go with the kits that I sell, or they could build their own frames around it, build it in their armor or whatever they want. A lot of people build it into their gauntlets and their bracers and things like that. So that's really cool. So that's really been the focus of my work, has been those the electronic kits, which primarily consists of the LED bars with different with all different plates that go around that, different patterns, and then those OLED screens where it displays your own custom message and either Arabic or the Mandalorian script. And like I said, people can put their own script on there, and then I do all the programming, of course. And for them, it's just plug and play. They get it, and it runs off either a USB or a standard 9-volt battery. It has both. Everything comes with both power options now. It used to be a split; you had to pick which one, but I just decided to add the 9-volt stock. So if people buy it as a 9-volt, they want to power it later via USB, it's there. They could change their mind at a later date, but. So those are really the bulk of my products. I spend a lot of time soldering, but I like soldering anyway.
You're molded by it.
Yeah, exactly. So I would be downstairs in my little workshop soldering anyway if I wasn't doing this. So this is just an outlet for that. So but yeah, I mean the goal of the shop is to get our product out there as far as possible, as far and wide as we can, shipped all over, thousands of orders all over, which in a couple of years, I just never even imagined we would do it. It would even be that way. The question, my wife is like my shipping department and my main cheerleader and everything. And it really went from, are there any orders today, during the first, few months to how many orders today, what's the question, right? So that's been really neat. We're always, but the biggest thrill is really to see when someone either tags us in on Instagram or Facebook and shows us what they built, because honestly, I'm where I lack. I'm not a painter. I'm not great at weathering. I'm not great at any of that. I will paint stuff per request, but it's just not my forte. Everything comes kind of bare and ready to paint. And I love the paint jobs that people do. I love seeing what people do to the stuff that we make. It's and then seeing what they built out of it, either these cases or the bracers, the gauntlets, and all that, or just built it into their jackets or their whatever other cosplay pieces. And then the last celebration in Anaheim, Star Wars Celebration, we got to meet people on the street wearing our stuff, and
cool.
And just like you're walking down, and
that's a cool feeling.
That was
Wait
it.
a second.
That was it. I'm like, did you get that from this? We did. And I'm like, oh, I'm James. You're James. And this one woman just gave me a huge hug, and you're just like, oh my God, you're the guy. I'm like, oh, you, and just as I don't have to tell you two, people spend years and years and years on their pieces and their makeup and their costumes and their headpieces. There was this one woman, she's Twi'lek, and just the makeup was perfect and the headgear was perfect, and she had this jacket on perfect, and she had this cool vest and the pants, and she had 2 of our Greeblies on her vest, and it was the only Greebly pieces she had. And I'm like, of all of the a lot of other Greebly makers, you could kind of make your own, you don't have to do anything, and out of all the things, you chose ours, and that was just like, wow, that was just like really cool. And we're, small little accent piece, but it meant a lot to us, and it was like, that really was that, seeing people like that, because they spent just countless hours on their things, and just for them to pick our pieces to kind of help bring it all together, along with all the other hard work that they've done, is really, that's just, to not sound cliche, but it's what it's all about, so
Heck yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of tell me, because I'm looking at your Instagram right now, and I'm seeing some of the pieces that you've done. So do you when somebody orders something from you and they want something, I'm seeing it looks like it's like a box you would put like armor in, or just like they want to make a Star Wars. So when they come to you for that, is it just like, hey, I need a Greebly for a box? do you have like templates, like, or how? What's your process for creating the Greeblies?
Yeah, we have a stock. There's a stock of 6 standard Greeblies that are in a standard size of 40 by 80, and everything we make, all the other electronics pieces and the screen pieces and all those pieces fit off of that template. So there's a mix and match kind of component. So if we make these backing plates, we have a couple different backing plates and different screen plates and different LED plates. You can mix and match the kind of start with the standard 80 by 40 mil Greeblies and then match it into that. So people could just pick what they want. Okay. Yeah. So either all the products are on our website, the jettisonable.com. And my personal portfolio is at 3d.jamessiegel.com. That's SEAGLE if you want to check that out.
We'll have all those links down below, guys.
Yeah, and that's just where I kind of keep a running kind of all the Instagram stuff that people send and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so we just lay everything out there and people can pick and choose what they want and mix. It's a mix and match kind of a system where people can say, I like this piece and I like this piece and I want to put these two together, and they could kind of grab it and kind of assemble their own kit. So that's always all of our pieces back from the original designs fit together with the current pieces. So kind of think like Lego, the Lego you played with 15 years ago still works with the Lego you could go to the store and buy with today. That was kind of the concept. Like, it's never gonna I've kept all the sizes standard on purpose just so everything will always be compatible with everything else going down the road. I don't want to ever change that kind of idea. That so that was kind of part of the thought of it too. So
very cool, man. Yeah. Very cool. Well, to kind of wrap things up, I always like, especially with people who have experience in artist craft, if somebody wants to kind of get into, it could be for anything, but just into Arduinos and soldering and making like LED screens and lights and stuff like that, what would your advice be to them? Absolutely. I would, for both Arduino and 3D modeling, you can't go wrong with starting with Tinkercad. They have both a free 3D modeling platform. It's all online and, like I said, free. And then they have a whole, even if you can't afford an Arduino right now to get started and just start soldering, you can virtually wire together any project you want on their circuit site. So you drag and drop the same Arduino that you'd buy at the store. You drag it in the template, you drag your wires together, you wire A to B and B to C, and you could bring in all your resistors, all your LEDs, all your buttons and everything, and that servos, lights, all of it. And it's all in Tinkercad and it's all for free. So before you spend a dime, you can go to Tinkercad and virtually wire everything together. We called it breadboarding back in the day. Before you solder together, you would buy a breadboard. And, it's where you would punch everything in, and before you wired it, you made sure it worked and made sure your code worked and all of it. And then once it worked on the breadboard, then you took it apart and you actually physically soldered it together. Now, those same breadboards, the same models of breadboards we would buy at Radio Shack back in the day are modeled in Tinkercad. So you can bring in the actual breadboard and then bring the little servos in, bring your little LEDs in, bring your motors in, light sensors, anything you want. And I still use it. I use that just to virtually kind of put together something. There's a project I want to work on later this day, and I'll probably just write the code, and instead of before I go physically solder it and then upload the code, I'll probably just, quote unquote, wire it in that circuits lab in Tinkercad and put it together. So they have Arduino. They have Arduino tutorials too. I haven't been through them personally, but they look great. And you could play with all of these stuff, photorealistic Arduino boards, buttons, switches, LEDs, all of it is all in there, and you can wire it, and all the same electronic principles will all work together. So that would be my number. If you want to get into it, it's YouTube is obviously your best resource. You want to learn solder, you want to learn Arduino, you want to learn how to 3D model, and Tinkercad, just because of the barrier to entry, you just need a free
It's a free account. Just go in and make your free account, and you have your workspace, and you can start 3D modeling, and you can start building circuits and coding right from there.
I had no idea that they had a like a coding aspect for it, because I used Tinkercad for the longest time until I switched over to another modeling software. I had no idea that was a thing. That's cool.
yeah. They have a full wiring. Like I said, you just bring in the actual photorealistic pieces, and then you just drag a line from each little connector and drag it to the pin on the Arduino board, and you just drag and drop. It's just you wire it in, it draws the little wire, and then it'll act like exactly like you do it. And anyone, if you've ever miscalculated a resistor in line between an LED, they're like 10 cents, right? But still, you pop your LED, right? And so it's really nice to go, instead of this was supposed to be a 1000K resistor, and I wired in 100K, and you plug in your 9-volt, and the little LED pops, because you put too much voltage into it. It's really nice on here. It'll still pop, right? It'll still do a little pop, and you quote unquote broke it, but then you can go into the resistor and modify the resistor from 100K to 1000K, right? And then plug it in again, and that little LED won't, it'll go back. So you can make all the mistakes. All the mistakes in real life will still happen in the software. It's not going to do anything different. It's not going to go, oh, I'm sure you meant 1000K instead of 100K for your resistor. Let me fix that for you, and the little light will turn on. It won't work if it's miswired. It won't work if you have the wrong resistor in there, and it'll actually quote unquote break the components in real time when you plug it in and run the apply virtual power to the Arduino board in the system. But obviously, you're not breaking anything in real life, and then you could go on rewind, Control Z, go back, figure out your thing. So you're still learning, right? You're still learning exactly what in the physical world. You're still learning all the principles. You just didn't waste, you didn't pop a resistor or a capacitor or an LED in real life, and then I made that mistake. It's much better to make the mistake in the software instead of in real life. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, very cool. Well, James, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to just explain how you do things and how you make all your greeblies. Guys, like I said, down below, we're going to have all his links as well as everybody else that comes on. So definitely go check those out.